Some of the times we had to work late at night, and there'd only be a few of us, and occasionally the power would go off completely, which meant you couldn't go down the outside elevator, but you had a choice. You could go down a ladder, which was hard with a group of guys going down a ladder and the guy up above you stepping on your fingers, and you got your lunchbox and everything. Or you could go down the stairs on the inside, which was probably the easiest way, we took more often. But in total darkness, it would be like walking down there with your eyes closed. And there would be stuff on the stairs. Some places didn't have any handrail. And the lead guy might have a cigarette lighter, which if we get to a bad spot, he might turn it on for a minute, then turn it back off and relay the message back, you know, there's something in the stair here, an air bottle or something. But go all the way down from the top of the arch to the basement with your eyes closed when part of the handrails are missing, and the stairs, you know, go from spirals to long zigzags. And you finally get down to the bottom, well, then you had to navigate the tunnels. And finally, when you get up into the visitor center, you could see a little bit of daylight from the city coming in. With no windows, there was no way of seeing it all inside. It was just like closing your eyes and walking. And that was always a surprise, trying to do that.
Once we got the arch up to a certain height where we quit pouring concrete between the walls of the arch, then it became structural steel, and you started to feel a lot of movement. Then whenever you get into a heavy load, you could feel it flex, and when he'd stop that load, you'd feel the steel flex, and it seemed like to me that it would just almost had a life of its own, because it just seemed like it was breathing. It moved like 3 times. It'd go, and then it'd come back, and then 3 moves like that, and that just went on, you know, day in and day out.
All the iron inside the arch is on a skew. As the arch leans, the iron stays flat with the arch. So if you're leaning 15 degrees, the top of the iron is leaning at 15 degrees too. And you're walking on it, it's on an angle. Everything up there is on a skew, everything. Everything but the stairways. When you go up the stairs are flat and the landings are flat. But wherever that touches, that's the only thing that's flat. And then the rest of the iron, the elevators and the cars, the rail cars that run up and down, all that iron is either pipe or it's put in on an angle. And it's really, it's like you've been in these houses that make you crazy walking around in them, where you feel like you're falling over all the time. That's the way it is. I'm surprised that we didn't get a lot of guys hurt on the arch inside.
We were up there that day, the 85-mile-an-hour wind hit, and the derricks had just been jumped up to the very end of the arch again, and everything was moving. I was working with a fellow named John Wagner, right there close to the top, and I said, "John, is this thing moving?" He said, "Oh, it's always moving," which it was. And then it started howling, you could like blowing across the bottle, and I said, "John, is there something going on?" Well, he was welding, and he raised his hood and looked around, and he said, "Jesus, it is moving, let's get out of here." Well, he was kind of heavy set, and he got down the stairs, went down the inside all the way to the bottom, and somebody said, "John, I didn't know you could move that fast." He said, "Well," he said, "I wasn't scared." He said, "I passed a bunch of guys that was."
Up on the Creeper Derrick, I had a platform where the people worked, and on that we had a John, because it was a long ways down to the ground. And as a matter of fact, I took my son up there with me one time, and I have a picture at home of him coming out of the John, and I always told people that was the highest point of relief west of the Mississippi River.